Jai Shri Ram. Welcome. Namaste to today's Global Ramayana reading. I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes for everyone to come in and settle down. Welcome. So I hope those who are joining me can hear me all right. And I'll just not able to. Okay, everything looks fine right now. Okay, great. Let's try and move that way. Bit of smoke today. Today's reading, the weather is a bit crisp. It's been raining. I'm based in Melbourne, Australia. Doesn't matter where you are. If the story is meant to find you, it will. I will try and speak up a little bit. So just bear with me as we delve deeper into the epic tale of the Ramayana. And I'd like to start by welcoming everyone who's joining now. It's a story that cuts across religions and cultures and divides and barriers. So take from it what you will. There is something for everyone. And if you're here, if you find yourself here, then the story has found you. And it's sort of, it works in magical ways. So I thought I'd make it a bit more informative for those of us who are not Indian. And the usual format that I follow is opening the space and getting into the story and then closing the space, and of course we proceed back to the welcome. But today I'll take a few moments just checking on the time. We're doing okay for time. Just have a look now. Okay. So let me start by saying that the story of the Ramayana is the story of Lord Ram, king in sent to exile by his evil mother. And this little statue is Lord Vishnu, Lord Ram, Lord Krishna with Radha, his beloved, playing the flute. And this is his incarnation that the story is. So, just a little bit of information there. And of course, no story of Ramayana is complete without the monkey god. And that's why I said, let the child in you come out, bring your favorite animal along, because this is this is this is about finding what you need, the story that is unfinished, and there is, like I always say, a weaving in a weaving in a weaving. So Lord Hanuman, or the monkey god, here is shown holding a mountain. And he had a lot of strength and will and courage. And so these are qualities that are applicable and sort of desired, so to speak, to master in this age of the Kali Yuga, where you find yourself. So the story is simply a story for those who want to look at it that way, but it is much more. There are layers, and you can find so much. So welcome and blessings to you for being here at this time, all of you. Pull up your pillow if you need to, bring your little stuffed animal. I've got my corky, Rocky, here, and I have quite a few birds that come to listen to the Ramayana and other tales. I have lorikeets and rosellas and galas and magpies. So the bird kingdom is quite interested in the tales of the Ramayana. Okay, so start by opening the space. And I'm going to do that just by taking a bit of water to sort of purify the space. And give thanks to Mother Earth, the ground upon which we sit or stand, that holds us. And we give thanks to Father Sky, to Grandfather Sun, Grandmother Moon, the stars, everything that is part of the great web of creation. Honor the sacred fire that bears witness as we tell the story, the wind that carries the messages to those who need it. It is all one being. I give thanks to the water that remembers it's all one. I give thanks to the ether. I give thanks to the ancestors, those who came before us, to all beings, all sentient beings, all beings of love, all other beings, all kings and kingdoms, the animal kingdom, the crystal kingdom, the mineral kingdom, the ones that have been exiled, those that have been forgotten. All are welcome, all are acknowledged, all are honored for being part of this sacred story. We give thanks to the grandmothers and the grandfathers, the elders, the shamans, the wisdom that the space carries, space and time itself. I give thanks to even the dark forces. They are here and permitted to be through the grace of Shiva, or whatever you'd like to give that form or name. It's all energy, but disarmed attendance only. And what I mean by that is only pure love is able to come, and intention is supreme. So check your intentions, check where you are in your life and why you're here, and what are you looking for, what are you bringing, what is your story. I give thanks to the stories, finished and unfinished, um, to all beings and all kingdoms, all cosmologies, consciousness itself, known and unknown, understood and not understood, the birds, all tribes, all beings, and especially the wolf, and the raven and the lion and the cockatoo. So thank you to all members of my Sacred Fire Circle, and a special request, special prayer for Parag Tolik and Priyadat. Special thanks to my mother, Mrs. Kirti Khan, who is helping me through this storytelling journey. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Today is an interesting day. Today we will be talking about the story of Vishwamitra and Vashisht, sage Vashisht. Vishwamitra is a king and Vashisht is a sage. And what happens is the king goes to meet him and finds he has this cow. Now in India, cow is very sacred. And this particular cow is, she's able to procure anything, biggest desire, the biggest feast she can come up with. So he becomes greedy and he says, please give me this cow, I'm the king. And the sage goes, even if you give me 1,000,000 cows, I will not part with this pig. Ooh, the fire increases, gets more dramatic. So he refuses, and of course the king has an ego and does not like it and starts to pull the cow, and then the sage is very angry. So what happens is the king ends up deciding to perform austerities. Now that is one way you can get a boon, and that is the way in the old stories where you would perform severe rites and austerities and meditation and chanting, really purify the essence of your being, including firework, and then, ask for your boon. The Lord is pleased, so whatever that incarnation performed is your belief system. So he did all these austerities, and the Lord came back saying, "You're not. What is the boon that you want?" He says, "I want to be as powerful as the sage." He said, "Well, you've got to do more work." And so he went back and he performed more austerities. But the demigods got worried because his energy grew so much. When you purify yourself, your inner fire increases, and things begin to change. You affect the cosmos. You literally do. So they went back and they said, "Oh, look, things are getting too hard." Um, and yeah, and so then he was sent this Apsara, which is like a goddess but not a goddess, to distract him. And so he was distracted. And when he comes out of this distraction that lasted him 10 years, he realizes his fundamental mistake. He's fallen victim to desire, despite having that determination And so he performs the austerities again and becomes powerful yet again. And this time he becomes like the sage. So, interesting read today. And let's get moving. We're running a bit late today, so I'll be reading till 7:25. Now, I do acknowledge you are here, and I hope you can hear me. The fire's a bit loud. Just move it to the side. How's that? Oops. Rocky's just fallen. Oops. Sorry, Rocky. Okay. A few little hiccups, but we will manage fine. Okay. So we are in the Bala Kanda. Okay. Just one more section one. And give me a minute. So we were at the point in the story when Ahalya was turned into a pillar of stone. And this was the curse that she received. Gautama then said, only when Lord Ram visits this spot in this distant future will you be absolved of your sin, freed from all lusty desires, and reunited with me as your husband. Now, you can go back to my previous recording to see what that story was, but she went through a tough time. Um, and as a result of that, this came about. Okay. It's starting to rain here, so we have a few unforeseen circumstances in today's Ramayana. Saying this, Gautama departed for the Himalayas. Meanwhile, Indra informed the demigods, I have successfully thwarted Gautam Rishi's attempt to attain my position as king of the heaven by making him angry. However, in the process, I have also lost my testicles. Now, somehow or the other, please arrange for my manhood to be restored. Gets a bit graphic. Responding to Indra's plea, the demigods arranged for the Pitas to castrate a ram and grafted his testicles onto Indra's body. After narrating this story, Vishwamitra invited Lord Ram to enter the ashram of Gautama. As soon as Ram entered the hermitage, Ahalya regained her original form, dazzling with ascetic splendor. Indeed, upon Ahalya's liberation, there was sudden shower of celestial flowers, with drums beating in the heavens. Ram and Lakshman respectfully touched Ahalya's feet, and she reciprocally welcomed the two brothers and Vishwamitra. Gautam Rishi then came to be reunited with his wife and worshipped Lord Ram and Lakshman with great reverence. Thereafter, the caravan entered Mithila. Upon arriving at the sacrificial arena of King Janaka, Lord Ram was pleased to see that thousands of Brahmins had assembled from all parts of the world. Hearing this Vishwamitra's arrival, Maharaja Janaka hurriedly went to greet him and addressed him, saying, O best of saintly persons, This sacrifice will take 12 days to complete with the demigods, appearing personally to accept their shares of the offerings. My dear sir, please tell me who these two exalted personalities are that have accompanied you. Indeed, they appear to be like gods in human form. Okay, the wind has changed. Bear with me. Okay. How are we doing now? Vishwamitra replied, these two young men are Ram and Lakshman, the sons of King Dashrath. They have come here to examine the great bow that you have been worshipping. Hmm. Now it gets interesting. This bow, let's find out about this bow. I brought them from Ayodhya to my ashram to kill the Rakshasas that were disturbing my sacrifice. Now, Rakshasas is a word for demons. Okay? On the way, they killed the she demon, Tataka, and then at Siddhashrama, Rama hurled Marika 100 yojanas into the sea and killed Subahu. So they are recollecting the past feats of Lord Ram on the way till here. Before arriving at Mithila, Rama freed Ahalya from her husband's curse and received the worship of Gautam Rishi. So we hear about Gautam Rishi here. Later, when everyone was comfortably seated, Satananda, the chief priest of Maharaja Janaka, and the eldest son of Gautam Rishi, requested Vishwamitra to recount in detail the story of how his mother had regained her original form at the sight of Lord Rama. The Rishi then happily related the entire incident. Thereafter, Satananda reciprocated by narrating the glorious history of Vishwamitra. Very smoky. Okay. Vishwamitra was born as the son of Gadhi and formerly ruled his kingdom as a righteous Kshatriya. Kshatriya is the class of warriors. Those who are not familiar with the terminology, I will, just define it where possible as we go along. Okay. Once taking an Aksoni of soldiers with him, Vishwamitra began to travel over the earth. In due course, he came upon the hermitage of the great Brahmarshi Vasishtha. Entering the beautiful hermitage, which was inhabited by many sages, he bowed respectfully before Vasishtha. The rishi received Vishwamitra cordially, and the two became engaged in friendly conversation. Vasishtha then said, my dear king, please remain here for a few days as my guest so I may entertain you in a manner befitting your position. Vishwamitra humbly replied, I'm already fully satisfied with your kind reception. I ask only for your permission to leave. Vasishtha, however, repeatedly insisted that Vishwamitra and his men remain. So, finally, He relented. This being settled, Vashisht brought his Kamdhenu cow named Sabala before Vishwamitra and ordered her to produce a sumptuous royal feast. Now, this is what I was talking about in summary at the beginning. Being so commanded, the celestial cow immediately brought forth a huge quantity of seemingly unlimited varieties of food and drink, all arranged on sparkling silver platters. So, you know, it's getting really fancy now. You can do anything. Vishwamitra and his men then feasted to their full satisfaction. Mm. So here you have this very, very useful cow that can basically look after all your needs. However, before long, Vishwamitra began to feel envious of Vashisht, wishing he had the celestial cow for himself. Greed, the seed. As the pangs of greed surfaced, Vishwamitra told Vasisht, I must have this wonderful cow of yours at all costs. Please give her to me, and I will reward you appropriately. Vishwamitra offered the sage hundreds of thousands of cows, gold, unlimited jewels, and more. Regardless, Vashisht refused to give up his celestial cow, saying, I am very sorry, but I shall never be able to part with this Kamdhenu, even in exchange for 1 billion cows. So we're getting serious. This wish fulfilling cow is inseparable from me, for I need her to supply all the ingredients for my sacrificial performances. Vishwamitra, the king, then replied, this cow should rightfully belong to me, for the king is meant to possess the very best of everything. So now it's gone from greed, now we're getting into it's my right all of a sudden. Because Vashisht's refusal only fanned the flames of Vishwamitra's desire, the king proceeded to offer the sage more and more. Regardless, Vashisht refused to part with the cow. Finally, out of frustration and sheer anger, Vishwamitra grabbed the cow and began dragging her out of the ashram. Now that's a no-no. We don't do that. All life is sacred, especially if you're in an ashram. So that was certainly not in his best interest and the right action. At this, the Kamdhenu cried out pitifully, imploring Vashishta, O Rishi, why are you allowing me to be taken away like this? Although I have served you faithfully, are you now going to desert me? Hmm. Ah. Sabala freed herself from hundreds of men assisting Vishwamitra in dragging her away. As she fled back to the ashram, Vashisht replied, my dear Sabala, I am certainly not abandoning you. However, my power is not equal to the king's, so I am helpless to rescue you. Sabala replied, so the cow replies, dear Rishi, the king's material strength is insignificant in comparison to your spiritual strength. Okay, so that's an important little jewel over there. If you allow me to do so, I will utilize your superior energy to vanquish Vishwamitra's army myself. So she is certainly taking the reins. When Vashish gave his consent, Sabala proceeded to create innumerable fierce warriors from a body that began to consume Vishwamitra's army. However, the powerful king destroyed them all. Moreover, his Kshatriya spirit bristling, he challenged Sabala to create more soldiers if she desired to continue fighting. She then proceeded to produce more fiercer warriors that sprang from her udders, genitals, anus, and other body parts. These superior soldiers completely vanquished Vishwamitra's army. Now, seeing this, seeing this, his 100 sons angrily rushed at the sage Vasisht. But the Brahmarshi reduced them to a mere pile of ashes, just like we're seeing over here, uttering a mighty roar. Having thus lost not only his entire army, lost, but his sons as well. He departed, the king departed, quite pale and quite dejected. Of course, he had lost a lot. Vishwamitra ordered his only remaining son to rule the kingdom and retired to the forest to perform severe austerities to the Lord, hoping to please Lord Shiva. So it circles back to him. It's very interesting if you really get into the guts of it, how the stories weave. Um, okay, how are we doing on time? So I'll continue a bit longer today because we've had a few unforeseen circumstances, but I hope you're warm wherever you are. It is absolutely freezing here in Melbourne. So yeah, blessings to you for showing up. Okay, after some time, Lord Shiva became satisfied with Vishwamitra's austerities and appeared before the king to reward him. The delighted Vishwamitra expressed his desire to possess the knowledge of all celestial weapons. Lord Shiva, known as Asutosa, because he is easily pleased, and we discussed this. Seems to be a helicopter now. Okay. Everyone wants to hear the Ramayana today. Okay, celestial weapons we're talking about, and here we've got a little helicopter. Interesting. So, thus, Vishwamitra, who was already too proud, became exceedingly puffed up after receiving the celestial weapons, thinking his prowess to be invincible. Now that happens, the minute it's the human condition. We think we have it all, and then the bubble bursts. So perfect examples throughout the story. And I invite you to just lose yourself without overanalyzing anything and just enjoy the story. And it will unravel and weave its magic, if you like, on its own. And we don't control that. That beauty, that grace of unraveling um, that mystery, we allow that. And that comes with the story as well. So there you go. Okay, Vishwamitra went directly to the ashrama of Vashisht and began shouting down his weapons so fiercely that it appeared the ashram was on the verge of annihilation. Okay. And the wind has changed. All the sages residing there began to flee in terror. Ah, tool. can have a good fire. The key is just, here's another helicopter. Here we go. Aha! So the right wind conditions. Just allow that celestial weaponry to pass through the airspace. Right. Okay. All the sages there, as we saw, began to flee. Indeed, in a short time, the area then appeared desolate. So you had this big attack on the ashram. Everyone's run away, and you can hear crickets chirping at that. Picking up his Brahminical rod, picking up his rod, the rod. Okay. Vasishtha addressed Vishwamitra as follows. Now the sage is angry. Because of your rash act of aggression, I shall now cut down your false pride and show you the futility of your so-called prowess. Vasishtha held out his rod and neutralized all of Vishwamitra's weapons. He then resorted to hurling his remaining weapons. Things are getting serious. Hurling his remaining celestial weapons. When this too failed, he prepared to release the ultimate weapon, the Brahmastra. Now read about the Brahmastra. Ooh, had a bit of a bang. Brahmastra. From above, the demigods witnessed the spectacular duel. Right? When Vishwamitra invoked the terrible Brahmastra, they became wonder-struck and fearful, both at the same time. It's a funny thing sometimes, when you're excited and you're scared at the same time, and we've all experienced it. So, there's a lot there. There's a lot there to really sink into. So, after Vishwamitra released it, Vasishtha countered it by assuming an awesome form of gigantic proportions with flames blazing forth from every pore of his body, okay, neutralizing the energy of the Brahmastra. Okay. The tremendous form exhibited by Vasishtha. Now, for those who are losing it, Vasishtha is the sage and Vishwamitra is the king. Okay, the smaller one is the sage, the longer one is the king. The form exhibited by Vasishtha and everyone who witnessed it. Indeed, after seeing the Rishi's great prowess, the sages began to offer Vasishtha prayers. With the Brahmastra weapon now countered, Vasishtha again assumed his normal form. In the meantime, Vishwamitra desisted from battle and departed, condemning the meager powers of the Kshatriyas. Okay. Understanding Brahmanical power to be superior, Vishwamitra became determined to become a Brahmarshi, just like the sage. Like Vasishtha, he then went into seclusion with his wife and began to execute severe penances. After 1,000 years, so we talk about severe, that gives you a bit of a a sense of severe. Okay, this is not 3 days standing on a leg, if you like. After 1,000 years, Lord Brahma, who is the creator, or there's a certain depth to that story too, but that's a separate story. So let's just say that for now. He controls the area of creation, let's put it that way. That is his remit. However, he appeared before Vishwamitra and formally conferred upon him the status of Rajarshi as a reward. However, as he departed, Vishwamitra hung his head in shame over the meagerness of his achievement. Now remember, the king wanted to be exactly like the sage. Okay, so he didn't get that. Remaining determined to achieve the status of Brahmarsi. So he got Rajarshi. So you can look at it as levels if you like. And he wanted to be the ultimate Brahmarsi. Okay, so he did what he did best, and he resumed his severe austerities. Oops. Okay. During the same time, there was a king in the line of Ikshvaku named Trisanku, who ruled from his capital, Ayodhya. Now that's an important name, Ayodhya. Desiring to perform a sacrifice that would enable him, oh, the flame just lit again, ascend to the heaven in his human body. Beautiful. Without changing bodies, he requested Vasisht to become his priest. Vasisht, however, refused, claiming it would be impossible to perform such a sacrifice. Afterwards, Trisanku approached Vasisht's 100 sons who were engaged in performing sacrifices and asked them to assist him in performance of his sacrifice. However, when they learnt of his father's refusal, they angrily chastised him for attempting to solicit their help after being turned down by his guru. Okay, so things get a bit messy. Hearing their criticism, Trisanku replied, "If you are not willing to help me, I will seek the assistance of others, more magnanimous." Upon hearing his imprudent statement, the rishis became furious and cursed Trisanku to become a Kandala. Soon thereafter, Trisanku's golden complexion turned black, his garments became old and soiled. His long, lustrous hair began to fall out. His cosmetics turned to ashes, his gold ornaments turned to iron, his garland transformed into flowers from a crematorium. When Trisanku's ministers witnessed this transformation, they immediately abandoned him as untouchable, having become a Kandala bereft of his former position. Trisanku went to see Vishwamitra, who was engaged in performing austerities he had assumed. Okay, beautiful. So that concludes this evening's reading. We've gone a bit behind today, but that's okay. There is no rush. Although the story has a beginning and end, you know, it is the journey, not the destination, that we are interested in. So thank you to all who participated. Many blessings to you wherever you are, COVID or no COVID or whatever it is that's happening in your external reality. Um, may the heart of your being um, be more grounded and be more present and be more loving and be more lit up tonight. And may your guides be by your side, your loved ones, no matter which realm they are in, be with you. And may love surround you now. So, and now close the space and give thanks to everyone who is present, everyone who intended to be present, and everyone's extended systems, families, structures, um, their paths, their faiths, whatever is keeping them going. I give thanks to that life force. And of course, the great Mother Goddess, Lalita, the great Lord Shiva, and Lord Ram. Um, Jai Shri Ram. Have a wonderful, wonderful fortnight. And our next reading will be at the same time, same place. So keep a lookout on my Facebook page for the recorded live video if you've missed it. And thank you. Much gratitude. Goodbye from the whole kingdom and from Rocky. Jai Shri Ram.